for your service.
For sure. And here's Cindy's son, who can't get enough of the stars and stripes. Holding it up, wearing it, and painting it on his chest.
I love that. That's amazing.
Well, President Trump yesterday...
maybe he'll send us a photo, #ProudAmerican.
Well, he doesn't need to, because we have video of him yesterday at the Celebrate Freedom rally in Washington, D.C. He was right there in the heart of the swamp. And he was there in Washington, D.C., talking to veterans, thanking them for their service. He also fired off a few shots at the media, too. Take a listen.
These American heroes risked everything so that you and I can live in freedom. They gave all they had, everything, for their comrades, their country, and for victory. They like winning. We like winning again, don't we? I want you all and all of our incredible wounded warriors to know you have an entire nation of more than 300 million people behind you. And our nation's getting strong again. Do you notice? We signed Veterans Accountability. They've been trying to do it for 40 years. You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job for the veterans. Robbing, stealing, hurting people, you couldn't do anything. And now you can say, you're fired.
You know, what he's attempting to do and has done so far at the VA is one of those untold stories. The VA Accountability Act, a significant legislative victory. And it makes you think, if we had a different president, would we have gotten this kind of emphasis on the VA, on vets, on rebuilding the military? Sometimes we take for granted how much laser focus there's been on things that matter to a lot of people out there.
That's such a great point. I mean, there's still a lot more to do when it comes to our military and our veterans, but this is something that he promised early on in the campaign trail. This was going to be one of his top priorities, his top issues. And he has stayed on that, and he's actually done some great things to make changes.
And he spent some time yesterday attacking the media.
No.
Yeah, I know it's shocking. But he actually took to Twitter prior to his event last night in Washington, D.C.
Maybe on Air Force One. He's getting ready, getting fired up for the speech.
Yeah, he fired up the dial-up modem on the Air Force One, and he said, I'm going to take to Twitter and I'm going to say this. The fake and fraudulent news media is working hard to convince Republicans and others that I should not use social media. But remember, I won the 2016 election with interviews, speeches, and social media. Remember when Hillary Clinton wouldn't do a lot of interviews? He said, I had to beat fake news, and did. We will continue to win.
That's a great point. There were like over 200 days where we didn't hear anything really from Hillary Clinton. You also forget how many people President Trump ran against, even on the Republican side. I think the list was like
35 or something.
Yeah, and many of them, most of them have been in politics most of their life. They already had this advantage, like Jeb Bush, you think about, who had all that money he raked in well before he even started. President Trump had never been in politics, never done this before, didn't have the money. To his point, figured out a way to bypass the media and all the politicos out there and prove that he could win.
He faced resistance then, he's still facing it now, and he's still punching back as he always has. Take a listen to what he said last night.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them. Because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not. Their agenda is not your agenda. You've been saying it. I will never stop fighting for you. I am delivering on trade, on the economy, on the Supreme Court, on the Second Amendment, on our military, for our veterans.
So, you know, the criticism is that his tweets or the use of Twitter is not presidential. Some could argue that maybe some of his tweets this past week were maybe that's where they crossed the line. But he fired back yesterday on this. He said, look, my use of social media is not presidential. It's modern day presidential. Make America great again.
Yeah, because a lot of the critics are saying you could be one way on the campaign trail. That's fine. But now you are commander in chief. You need to act differently. To which he hit right back saying, no, I'm just a different type of president. We're living in different times.
That's exactly right. One of his former deputy campaign manager, David Bossie, was on the program earlier and said this is a metaphorical weapon the president uses and uses effectively. Listen.
The president understands the new media better than anyone. It is the reason he won. It is the reason he is the president of the United States today. Really, he uses it for one reason, to bypass the liberal media, which has become an arm of the Democratic Party, and speak directly to the American people. And it worked during the campaign, and it's going to continue to work. So what he is saying is, I'm going to fight back. I'm going to stand up for myself because the mainstream media is so dishonest. He does get it, and he gets it better than anyone. And if he wants to, he's able to change the conversation of the day with a simple tweet.
One of the other things that he said is that, you know, the mainstream media is just angry that he's creating his own headlines. And that back in the day, you pick up the newspaper, it should be our headlines that you're going to read. And instead, the president is driving the narrative with his own tweets.
You're taking attention away from us. That's supposed to be our game.
We debated it yesterday. I say more tweets. Keep the. I mean, just fight, because no one else can change a narrative like he can. David Boston.
What's he going to do when Twitter goes out of business?
Oh, he's going to keep it in business, I think.
He'll go to Facebook. He's got millions of followers on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you can do Facebook Live. You can do videos directly to the American people.
I'd like to see him do some Snapchats. It would be great.
Snapchat.
New York Times, speaking of headlines today.
The paper the failing New York Times, the paper that knows probably the least about the Constitution or understanding how to interpret it, put out an annotated Constitution this morning. So I opened it up, like I unfortunately do each morning. It's kind of like, let's see, can we get it here?
Almost as tall as you, Pete.
Always up here. I think my head's cut off, not sure. But yeah, it's a big old document, you know, a lot of words in there, but almost as much text with how they're interpreting it than the actual Constitution.
So you would think this would make a lot of sense, right? It's a 4th of July weekend, Independence Day, would make sense to have the Constitution. Well, Mark Levin was on the show earlier, and he made a great point. Number one, first of all, the Declaration of Independence was the document that was read aloud on July 4th.
Correct.
He's a Philly boy, at Independence Hall, and he said, look, they're not focused on the Declaration of Independence. You're never going to see them print that in the paper. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The principles of this country that we're celebrating today, the men who fought for this country, put their lives on the line, what were they all about? And the reason why you won't see that explained in the New York Times is because they don't agree with it. The entire progressive movement rejects the Declaration of Independence. How do we know? They told us this. They don't believe in unalienable rights. They believe that your rights come from government, and they believe that liberty is something that also comes from government. They even say it. You cannot fulfill yourself. This is why Bernie Sanders talks about free education, free health care, because otherwise you're not free, according to them.
Well, and even before you open this up, Pete was pointing this out, they've got a photo on the top of George Washington and talking about our founding fathers, and then below it, Trump. So, you know, good versus evil sort of thing of like how times have changed.
Absolutely. Maybe that was subliminal messaging to your con, to lie. Who knows? Just saying. New York Times would stoop to no bounds. But I'll say this is the paper that, you know, has expressed, you know, indignation toward religious freedom, toward the right to bear arms, toward limited government, toward the 10th Amendment, which pushes power down to the states. And I did check it. At least their writing of the Constitution does say freedom of religion, not freedom from religion.
I will give you credit.
They would want freedom from religion.
Pete, you still read that every morning.
I do.
I mean,
you got to know. You got to get inside the mind of the resistance movement and know what you're dealing with on fake news.
And let's be honest, he likes the recipes and the food section. So
it is the style section.
That's all it is.
That's what I get it for.
All right. I do want to bring you some other headlines we're following this morning, starting with the